My boyfriend gave away my Hamilton tickets, now I'm breaking up with him. I'm 29, so you know I lived through the infamous Hamilton phase, but my boyfriend is 32, so he just doesn't get it. My boyfriend gave my Hamilton tickets to his troubled sister without my knowledge, and now he and his parents are massively pissed at me because I won't give them to her. Should I just cut my losses? My mom had me fairly young, raised me by herself, and while we were pretty poor growing up, she did her damnedest to make sure that I got a good education and had everything I needed as a kid. One of the things we share is a love of the theater. She would save up and take me to all the musicals that stopped on tour in our town, and while we were always in the cheap seats, it was always something we both greatly looked forward to. These memories of going to the theater with my mom are very precious to me and is one of the main factors in why I work in the entertainment industry today. Corporate side, I have a horrendous singing voice. Lol. Fast forward to today. Like most theater nerds, my mom and I are basically obsessed with Hamilton. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with it, this show is basically impossible to get tickets for at this point, unless you want to see it in January of next year. I'm lucky enough to be in a financial position with my job that I can afford tickets for a show in July for me and my mom. These are amazing seats, 5th row center, and through some type of divine intervention I managed to snag tickets for the night that Lin-Manuel Miranda's, creator/lead in Hamilton, final performance. I surprised my mom with these tickets back in December. I bought them in October, I think, for Christmas. I'm making a whole week of it. I put us up in a really nice hotel. I made reservations at a bunch of restaurants that we both want to try, and we're going to do a bunch of touristy crap in general, plus try to see if we can fit in at least one other show before we leave. We are both incredibly excited for this. My mom even has a little Hamilton countdown that she's doing on a mini chalkboard she uses as a planner. She sends me pics every day when she changes it. It's cute. In January, I began dating this guy that I'll refer to as Joshua. We were casual/not exclusive for a while but became serious within the last 2 months. He also works in the corporate side of entertainment, but at a different agency than I do. He also has a higher position than me, and makes a lot more money than I do. This becomes important. We met at an industry event and we hit it off instantly. I thought I could get really serious about this guy, and up to this point there have been no red flags that I've seen, although to be honest right now I'm sifting through all of my memories to see if there's something I missed. He also comes from a much wealthier family than I do. Josh has a younger sister that I'll call Jennifer, 17, that's kind of going through a big troubled teen phase. She cuts class, smokes, and is really disrespectful to her parents. I've only met her once, but as far as I know, she's not doing anything too bad. She's just kind of a sad kid and could really benefit from some therapy. I floated this by Josh, but he said his parents are kind of disdainful of therapy in general. Josh says they can't reach out to her no matter what they do, and they've tried everything, except trying to get her to a counselor, but whatever. Actual problem time. Sunday night I was at my place with Joshua. We were drinking wine and cuddling while watching the Tonys Theater Award show. My mom was texting me during the Hamilton performance and geeking out about how excited she was. I laughed and showed my mom's text to Josh because I thought it was so adorable, and he didn't say anything off, but he was acting kind of strange after. He asked me what date the show we were going to was. I told him, and then he went into the other room to take a phone call. I thought nothing of it because we both have to take random phone calls like that for our jobs all the time, and he's going through kind of a tough time at his. He was in an unusually good mood afterwards and said he had to go home early because he had to sign some forms at the office early tomorrow before we met up to get brunch with his parents later that day. Again, nothing too unusual and pretty common with the both of us. He picks me up at work for the brunch with his parents, and again he's in an unusually good mood. I ask what's up and he says vaguely that things are going well at the office and this deal he's trying to make is finally going through. I don't really press for info because we both try to avoid work topics, partially due to work crap being fairly banal and partially because we both have to sign some pretty gnarly NDAs a lot of the time, and this is only my second time meeting his parents, so I'm still a bit nervous about brunch. We get to the brunch place and the first thing his mom does when she sees me is give me a huge, warm hug and profoundly thanks me for my kindness. Her dad also gives me a huge handshake and thanks me for helping out with Jen. I'm kind of what the effing because I have no clue what they're talking about. I ask what she means and she says for giving her the Hamilton tickets. I turn around to Josh and he just has this big grin on his face. Reddit, that time my boyfriend was away talking on the phone for business, he was actually on the phone with Jen promising that I would give her my Hamilton tickets. I was so thrown off by this that I, kind of not very tactfully, I admit, say how I had no clue about this. Josh looks pissed, and his parents are equally thrown off. But instead of getting mad at Josh, his mom just says, well, you can still give them to her though, right? And they all look at me like I'm supposed to just agree with this. And I try to explain that the trip is actually for me and my mom, and how important this is to my mom. All three of them start going on about how Jen is super excited about this and that this is the first time that she's not been mad/expressed happiness to them in a while. And that's how the next half hour goes basically, until the parents leave, mad, and the dad calls me a selfish cow. I'm so flabbergasted that I just sort of put up with it, but I could barely get in a word. Josh and I go outside the brunch place and he starts screaming at me about my selfishness, and how Jen is going through a much harder time than they thought. He wasn't very clear on this, so I'm not quite sure what he meant, and that I'm being childish because it's just a musical. I hate having arguments in public. Also, this is one of my favorite brunch spots and I wanted to be able to come back without being embarrassed, so I wasn't really engaging. He eventually called me a cunt, what the F, and then left in his car, which is awkward as hell because it was valet parking, so he was just kind of stewing by the valet stand while I was waiting for my Uber. Later that night I texted him saying while I wasn't giving up my tickets there are still some available on that date. However, they cost about $2,500 due to ticket scalpers jacking up the price. Believe me, this is not a problem for either the parents or my boyfriend. He literally bought a $3,000 watch for funsies last week. The only response I got was that was an exorbitant fee. I agree, but not the point. He refuses to pay and he didn't understand why I couldn't just give the tickets to Jen. I also got texts from both his parents pleading with me to get the tickets, and also they forwarded an email to me that Jen sent to Josh and her parents for thanking them for the surprise. Apparently she's also obsessed with Hamilton and this is making her year. Also, we live in LA. Do they also expect me to give up my plane ticket/hotel? What the F was their game plan here? Look, I completely understand wanting to help out with Jen, and I feel really bad that apparently her family is filled with weirdos, but this has been also baffling and the entitled behavior they displayed is a massive turn-off. I am not giving up these tickets. Is this selfish? But I also kind of want to cut my losses here. The attitude Josh displayed towards me outside of the brunch place was very unpleasant to say the least, and he knows how disrespectful I find being called a cunt, so I'm of half a mind to just break up with him. He knew I had these tickets for a while, and I don't get why he decided to do this now at all. But should I contact Jen and explain it all? I just saw that she made a really excited post on Facebook about it. I'm not friends with her, but I am friends with my boyfriend and he liked her post. I would straight up buy the ticket for her, but frankly I can't afford those prices because I'm saving up for the NYC trip for my mom. How do I move forward?
Today I effed up by learning sign language. The guy my mom's dating is deaf. Little did I know that secretly understanding sign language would expose me to disturbingly intimate conversations between my mom and the new man in her life. My mom's been involved with this new guy for a few months now. To be fair, enough time has passed for me to stop referring to him as the new guy, but he's not my dad and I guess that will always make him feel like the new guy. According to movie logic, I'm supposed to hate him for trying to replace my father or whatever, but the truth is, I like him. I like him so much that I've been learning how to use sign language to improve our communication because new guy happens to be deaf. He can read lips, which is how I've been communicating with him. My mom didn't waste any time learning sign language at the beginning of their romance, and she's at the point now where she can have full conversations without using her voice. I was really proud of her, and so was new guy. I'm not on their level yet, but I've had enough practice to follow a conversation that's not too complicated. My plan was to surprise new guy on his birthday, which is 2 months from now, and wish him a happy birthday as well as officially welcoming him to the family in sign language. However, I never factored in the amount of dirty talk my mom and new guy were having in sign language. Not knowing that I can understand them, my mom and new guy have gotten disturbingly comfortable exposing their intimacy life in my company. It didn't matter if we were at the dinner table or watching TV, I would constantly catch so many dirty descriptions being communicated between the two of them. They are worse than horny teenagers, and I should know, I am one. Number 17-year-old son should ever witness his mother use her fingers to demonstrate how wet her vey is. It's gotten to the point where I'm no longer willing to wait until new guy's birthday to make it known that I can understand sign language because holy F, I need my eyes to not see this crap anymore. This is an ongoing F up. My lesbian best friend said she has feelings for me, and now we are both confused. I'm a guy and my best friend of 6 years is a lesbian. We moved in together for school and now she might be bisexual and has feelings for me, and I have no idea what to do next. I have known this girl, let's call her K, since we were 14, and now we're 20. I met Kay when we were paired up in a group project for this one class 6 years ago. I found out we had a lot in common and we became friends. Over time, I developed a huge crush on her. Sophomore year I asked her to homecoming and she said yes. It was a good time, but after it didn't really lead to anything, I got the sense that she didn't like me the way I liked her. Junior year, Kay came out as lesbian. Honestly, I wasn't super surprised, but I was a little heartbroken. I decided to put all my feelings away and just be supportive. I was really enjoying my senior year. I started dating this girl the summer before school started and things were going well until the virus hit. My girlfriend broke up with me because she couldn't handle a relationship at the time. I was sad about that, but more upset that I was going to miss things like prom and senior trip. Kay knew I was upset and invited me over for a fake prom which consisted of us getting dressed up for photos and immediately going inside to play old Wii games and watch movies. She bought some of my favorite snacks. Still probably the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. First year of college sucked. Nothing noteworthy happened other than Kay and I going to the same school. Kay started to date this girl who I'm 99% sure hated me for no reason. They broke up in the summer and now we go into sophomore year. Kay and I decided to get a place near campus together for the school year. Her mom thought it was weird, but her dad thought it was a good idea. We've had lots of good times so far. My favorite thing about living together has been our late night talks. We talk about anything from school, sports, hot girls, bad hookups, and more. Last night during one of our talks, Kay randomly brings up that she might be bisexual. Not gonna lie, I felt a little jealous thinking that she hooked up with a random guy. But she tells me that she has feelings for me. I kind of laughed it off at first until she started crying. She said she started having feelings for me a month ago and was super confused about her sexuality. I apologized for laughing and said we'd talk tomorrow. I didn't want to make any bad decisions that could ruin our friendship. So right now she's at class and I'm just alone thinking. This is literally a dream come true, so why am I hesitating at all? I guess I don't want her to just immediately change her mind after and make things weird between us. I'm anxiously waiting for her to get back. I really do love her though, I never thought I'd have a chance at this kind of love. Any advice on what I should say to her when she gets back? I feel like I'm overthinking this. I found out why no one will mess with my dad. My dad is a pretty lovely honest guy, but looks like a complete criminal and has a vein of insaneness in him that he tamed with age, and in general, has a don't F with me aura I picked up on since I was in elementary school and I finally found out why. Back when military was compulsory in my country, my dad, like everyone else, had to serve at 18. So he gets called up in this base very far away from home. He is the only one there not from the area, he looks different, has a different accent, doesn't know anyone, and is very young. So people start effing with him. This one bully in particular really starts getting on his nerves. So one night, when they are in the massive bedroom, with most beds, and this guy is bullying my dad with his friends, my dad goes up to this guy, really close to his face, and tells him next time you pull this crap again, I will set you on fire. They start laughing at him and making even more fun of him. Day after, it's bedtime again. This guy waits for my dad to fall asleep, and teabags him. My dad wakes up. Everyone is in tears from laughing. My dad calmly lights up a cigarette. Then he reaches for something. He was storing some gasoline. The guy went to sit on his bed in the meanwhile. My dad throws a bunch of gasoline on top of him while he starts freaking. Throws the cigarette on him. Guy goes on fire. They manage to stop it before it gets too dangerous. He still gets some burns. Everyone was so freaked out that they claimed it was an accident, too afraid to tell on my dad. Had no problems after that. Another time, he was with my mom at the beach. It was just the two of them. My dad was trying to get some sleep, my mom was sunbathing. A group of guys walk past, and one of them slaps my mom's SS. Like my dad wasn't there. Guy tells my dad, what you gonna do about it? I guess they felt there was safety in numbers. My dad doesn't say a word. He gets up, takes the metal tube umbrella out of the sand, and starts beating the ever-living F out of that guy until he is half passed out. He then stares down his friends until they leave. Another time, back when he was in school, the principal's son was a real dickhead, always bullying smaller, weaker, younger kids. My dad couldn't take his poop, he's always hated injustice. So one day while this kid who felt like God was bullying some poor little kid, my dad went up to him, and told him to stop. The kid ignored him. My dad told him, if you are so brave, why don't you come and do that with someone your own size? The kid just laughed at him and told him to mind his own effing business if he didn't want him to tell his dad. The kid kept berating the other smaller child who was almost in tears. So my dad went up to the kid, pushed him on the ground, and started kicking him. After the kid looked pretty hurt, my dad got him in a lock and started slapping his butt in front of everyone and told him, go on, tell your dad, call your dad. The kid started screaming, dad come please, like a banshee, until a teacher did call the principal. He came and got my dad off his son, and called my grandma into school. So the kid told his story, highly skewed. My dad kept cool and told what actually happened. The principal was furious. My dad told how everything went. To which my grandma told the principal, I know my son. He is not a liar, and absolutely not a bully. Your son had it coming. Tell him to learn how to behave, because my son won't tolerate the kind of behavior, and I fully support him. My badass grandma then just went home with my dad, and told him to make sure there are no witnesses next time he kicks his SS. Boss wants me to work more, only problem is he doesn't know I quit over a month ago. I got accepted into college and had to quit my job of 2 years. I put up my resignation papers and had 2 months of notice period left. I had informed my manager and team, but didn't account for Mr. S, who was technically on my team but worked from the client offices overseas, so I don't get to see him ever. Background on Mr. S, he was hired as a mediator between the client and us, but had years of technical experience, so he often helped us out with the technical work, but was always a snob about it. He made sure to CC every possible manager in every mail to show that he was doing a lot more than his role was required to do. Everyone hated how commanding and rude he was. Most meetings with him were just the entire team listening to him complain and moan for 20 minutes. He had no boundaries and would call up at odd hours of the night just to prove his point. He would promise clients certain results with unreasonable timelines without consulting the team, leading to late delivery and terrible client ratings. Since I had 2 months left to go at work, I wasn't quick to give up responsibilities and transfer knowledge to my colleagues. I handled an important client-facing task and I've been doing it for the 2 years I worked there. I never taught it to anyone else cause it was a relatively easy task and it hasn't been screwed up in 2 years. We get info from the client that my task was undergoing major upgrades and needed to be done extra carefully and on priority for the next week. I know the drill and get to work as usual. Mr. S calls me up on Skype to re-emphasize the importance of the task this week. I just reply to him that I've been following all protocols every week and will continue the same as usual, being careful of the upgrades. He considers my answer as unprofessional and inconsiderate and proceeds to tell me how I'm not that important to the team and my job was easily replaceable. He then cut the call, and proceeded to reassign all my tasks for the next 2 months to someone else, while also formally emailing everybody that no new tasks were to be assigned to me. There I sat, maliciously complying, watching my teammates struggle to run my task, unable to help. I sat around doing nothing for the last 2 months of my job. Luckily I was working from home, so that meant 2 months of paid leave. Update, I found out my brother's secret. Now I must protect him at all costs. Trust me, I really wanted to talk to my parents and really wish I could tell them off, but right now that is not the best option. I'm currently the only person they let him go out alone with, so if I go off on them or tell them I know, they will most likely cut me out, hence completely isolating him, which is not a good idea given how depressed he's been. The other day I ran to Starbucks twice looking to catch his boyfriend, and fortunately the second time he was there, so I was able to have him write a note for my brother. I figured it'd be best to have something to lead into the conversation, plus I wanted him to write his number down in case my brother doesn't know it off the top of his head to text him from my phone. I picked my brother up like normal and fought the urge to go off on my mom. I've never had the best relationship with my parents, but I can honestly say I hate them now. The game plan was supposed to be going for a hike, but I said let's get food instead cause I didn't want to hike. Plus I figured he might get emotional and I honestly didn't want him near cliffs or hiking emotionally exhausted. I told him I actually had saw his boyfriend who gave me a letter to give to him and that it was in the glove box with my phone so he could text him if he wanted. I thought he was going to rip the door off the glove box when he opened it. He read the letter and started crying so badly that I pulled over. He didn't understand why I would help him because apparently our effing awful parents had him convinced that I would beat the crap out of him if I knew. I hate them so much. I can't believe they manipulated him like that. He cried more than I have ever seen another guy cry. I thought he'd call or text his boyfriend right away, but he spent at least an hour sobbing. I just kept reassuring him that nothing is wrong with him, that he's not broken or damaged or something that can or needs to be fixed. I felt like a broken record, but I think it helped, or at least I hope so. After he calmed down, I was able to talk to him the rest of the drive and throughout dinner. I told our parents he'd crash at my place cause it got late when we grabbed food and got talking to two girls, which immediately led to no fight or questions. They haven't physically hurt him, thank God, cause if they had, I'd probably be in jail right now. Hell, before it's all said and done, I may very well end up in it cause I am really furious with how they have been treating him. When they found out, they apparently trashed his room searching for anything gay, anything rainbow or not masculine enough, and destroyed anything found, including a couple of printed pictures he had with his boyfriend. They deleted all the pictures off his phone and blocked his boyfriend on it, which was pointless because apparently it's not just him using it in front of them, but one of them literally sits next to him if he uses his phone or computer. The rest of the time, they keep them locked up from him. They search his room once a week still in case he finds a way to sneak something in, like prison style, and toss him in his room like the slammer. The rest of the time they either don't talk to him or berate him and yell at him about how he needs to be cured and fixed. He cried a lot through our talking about all of this stuff, including me asking the tough question that he didn't want to answer. I asked about how depressed he has been. It included self-harm and sewer slide and the works, guys, and I'll admit it, I cried too. He has been self-harming and thought about sewer slide, including on our hikes, making me realize I'm never taking that kid anywhere high up again. I made him promise me that he won't self-harm and that if he thinks about doing it, he has to call me. If anything happens to him because of my parents, I will unalive them. We talked about options and what can be done, and I agreed to help him meet up with his boyfriend whenever possible and get him out of that house as often as possible. He eventually talked to his boyfriend in between us talking, which made him cry more but smile too. I promised him I'll do anything I can to get him out of that house permanently, emancipation, fight for custody, whatever. He hugged me more that day and night than I think I've ever hugged anyone. Hella embarrassing to admit, but he even slept in my bed because he didn't want to be alone. He was able to see his boyfriend the next day before I had to bring him back home, which effing unalived me a little inside. I'm supposed to go over to help him with a project later today, so we discussed that and I told him I have a few ideas and if I can pull one off, I might be able to give him a spot to hide a phone because I really want him to have one for an emergency. If I can make a spot, I'll get a phone for him on my plan to keep stashed to contact me and his boyfriend. I also called an attorney. Soonest he can see me is Friday, but hopefully he can help me work on getting him out of my parents' house. In the meantime, I already have another overnight covered with camping. I was actually going camping with my best friend just now. My brother and his boyfriend will be joining us. Last update, it's been a hectic week but worth it. My brother is now living with me. It's not a done deal by any means. We have a court date in about a month, but at the least till then, he can live with me. I have an attorney who's been fantastic and fast with helping me get things done, and he is trying to get the court date moved up. He said we have a few options to pursue and is very positive that no matter what outcome is made, he will be allowed to stay with me, whether that be emancipation or me becoming his legal guardian till 18. No matter what, he is my support emotionally and financially. My brother is feeling great, but I am still going to make sure he starts seeing a therapist, plus it will help with the legal stuff if he is. I'm relieved, beyond relieved. It was unaliving a part of me knowing he was in that situation. We were able to get a temporary no contact order against our parents so we don't have to deal with them till court, and hopefully if everything plays out like it should, it will become permanent. I'd say someday if they came around to being supportive, then maybe, but they weren't great parents before that. Honestly, had it not been for my brother, I would have cut contact when I moved out at 18. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she has no self-respect? My high school has an annual fall dance and a lot of the dance will be taking place outside. Anyway, the boys are supposed to ask the girls, and yesterday at lunch, a boy asked me, a girl, and I agreed to go with him. My dad has always been a traditional kind of guy when it comes to me and my younger sister. So last night at dinner, I mentioned that I had a date for the dance, and he made a crack about answering the door with his shotgun. The thing is, I'm pretty sure he would do it. I told him that if he was going to be like that, I'd just meet up with our friend group at school. He then got very serious and told me in an angry tone that he didn't want me sneaking around with some guy without his knowledge. He asked me what I even knew about this guy. He then said he didn't want me to turn into one of those ran-through guys who give it all away to the first guy they meet and who no self-respecting man would ever want to marry. That's when I flipped a switch. I like to think I'm a pretty good kid. I get good grades, I play volleyball, I help my sister with her homework and help drive her to her soccer practice. I've never had a boyfriend. So being talked to like I was some love-struck idiot who was going to wind up pregnant because I'm choosing to go to a dance with a friend really annoyed me. Also, I know a bit about my dad's history. He was in a frat in college, and he's told stories to my cousin, who recently started college at a big state school where frat culture is a big thing. So I told him that this guy is my friend and he seems nice, but if he turns out to be a jerk I'll figure it out, and also, I only agreed to go to a dance. The last time I checked, going to a dance was not a binding intimate contract, and here's where I may have crossed the line. I told him that I knew he was in a frat in college, and I know what goes on in those places. I also know the stories he's told my cousin. So in the heat of the moment, I said something along the lines of, by your own logic, the only person who's ran through in the family is you. Then I looked at my mom and said you must have had no self-respect to have married that battyman of a dad. By the looks on their faces, I could tell what I said was hurtful. And then of course, I got yelled at and probably won't be able to go to the dance at all. But I feel like it's unfair for him to give me a lecture about ran-through behavior and self-worth when he's recently been bragging to my male cousin about doing much worse things when he was just a few years older than me. But maybe I crossed the line trying to prove my point. As normal food seems bland to me now. I'm thinking of asking some friends if they would donate some to me, as I'm losing weight at a dangerous rate due to how little food I'm actually eating. I won't stop. I can't, I'm addicted. I love it. I need it. Forever. Am I the a-hole for keeping food in my room? I have a full-time job and pay $500 rent a month. I still live with my father, my stepmom, stepsister, and unfortunately my stepbrother. My stepbrother doesn't have a job. He doesn't plan to get one. He just sits at home all day eating up all of our food and playing video games. My dad won't do anything about it because he loves my stepmom and my stepmom won't do anything because she loves her son and this is how she raised him. They came into my life when I was 8 years old and it has always been this way. She coddles him, doesn't punish him, and she lets him do whatever he wants, which includes eating all the food in the house. I remember when I was 12, and my older half-sister still lived with us, she had some friends over so we ordered a large pizza. We ate almost half of it and put the rest in the fridge so we could have pizza for breakfast. Right? No. That guy ate the rest of the damn pizza by himself in the middle of the night. Ever since they moved in we haven't had a full fridge. Anyway, I have a small stash of food in my room, in one of those rubber totes so the chance of ants and whatnot is minimum. I keep chips, bottled pops, bread, and most recently, Cracker Barrel mac and cheese in there. I've been craving mac and cheese like crazy recently so I bought a few boxes and stashed them away. Last night I made a box of mac and cheese and my stepbrother wandered out of his room and asked where I got the mac and cheese from. I told him from my room and he asked what I meant. I told him I keep food in my room so someone doesn't eat all my food. I put a big emphasis on someone when talking to him. He called me an awful person and asked why I wouldn't share my food with everyone. I called him a rat right back and said maybe if you didn't eat so much there'd be more food to go around. I guess we were kind of loud because my dad came up the stairs and asked what we were yelling about. My stepbrother literally ratted on me and said I'm keeping food in my room away from everyone. My dad asked if I was serious, so I told him something along the lines of yes I am because I'm sick and tired of waking up hungry because there's no food in the house. I pay you more than enough rent to get food for everyone. I also threw in how my stepbrother doesn't even have a job and he's a lazy moocher who doesn't contribute anything and then stormed off to my room. I also called him a dirty little rat. I don't really think I'm a bad person, but my dad texted me and told me that it was really unnecessary for me to say all that and to keep food in my room because other people are hungry too. I texted one of my cousins about it and she sided with my dad so I'm just second guessing myself here. Fiancé left me after he found out about my college days. I've been with my fiancé for 2 years and engaged for 2 months. I can go on and on about how great he is but I won't waste your time. He's awesome. Him and my sister's boyfriend have gotten really close over the past year and they talk at least twice a week whether it be on the phone or FaceTime or just hanging out with all 4 of us. Sister has been with her boyfriend since high school so obviously her boyfriend knows me very well. As well as my dating history. Last weekend because of the lockdown, we all thought it would be fun to drink and hang out over FaceTime. It was a FaceTime double date and we all had a blast. Laughing, playing drinking games, we all partied for over an hour, and that's when I was over it and decided to leave the party to call my sister directly without the boys in another room. Well, my fiancée and her boyfriend stayed on FaceTime and continued to get intoxicated together. During this time, I couldn't hear anything because I was in another room and was talking to my sister. Sister's boyfriend goes and tells a bunch of stories about my college days and how many guys I hooked up with. Just so everyone knows. I don't know the actual number. My first 3 years of college was literally one giant party. Without being too descriptive, I admit I was excessive. But at the time it was just what we did. I was single during that time and me and my friends did a lot. With a lot of guys. Most of them I couldn't even pick out of a lineup. But again, I was in college. Anyways, one of the parties I went to I ended up hooking up with 4 different guys at the same time. This is relevant later. My fiancé is handsome as anything and I know for a fact he's been with several women. We talked about our past a lot in the beginning of our relationship. I wasn't 100% honest with mine and I can only assume that he was. After everyone hung up, me and my fiancé were lying in bed and about to sleep when he just calmly asked me, "Did you get ran through in college?" My response was, "Why would you ask that?" That's when he told me everything that my sister's boyfriend told him. He told me details that I'm not even sure are 100% true because again, a blur. But a lot of the info was accurate and so I just told him yes. It was one time. He continued asking questions about the other stuff, but the train running thing kept coming up and he had a lot of questions about it that I answered the best of my knowledge. Fast forward to Wednesday. Things had been fine and normal. But on Wednesday, radio silence. He hasn't texted or talked to me in 3 days. The breaking point was tonight when he came home from work and he asked me, "Are you friends with any of the guys on Facebook?" Again, not lying to him, I admitted that yes, I was friends with all of them. He left a few hours ago and I have no idea where he is or what he's doing. I'm tempted to call the cops, but I feel like that will just make it worse. I feel like garbage. I hate my sister's boyfriend right now, but maybe it's not even his fault. Maybe I should have been more honest. I'm so lost. He is the best thing to ever happen to me and I've never seen him like this before. Is this the end? He refuses to return my calls or texts. I'm finding out my girlfriend of 1 year is deaf as I'm on the bus on my way to see her for the first time. I met her in a match of League of Legends 2 years ago. We talked a lot, became really close and basically started dating 1 year ago. We send each other pictures all the time and videos as well, so I never understood her apprehension to FaceTime me. We tell each other everything, I mean everything. She's presented me to her parents and I know all her family. Today I was gonna surprise her by visiting for the first time. I talked with her sister to make sure it was okay. Less than 30 minutes ago, I got a text from her, and I'm copying and pasting a translated version. "Hey love, you are so sweet and beautiful and you deserve so much better. I know you are coming because Sarah told me. I'm sorry to ruin your surprise. I'd hate to see your face when you find out. I know we promised to always be truthful, but I've been lying to you all this time." That was her first paragraph and I was so scared because I thought she was breaking up with me, but then she continued, "You are too caring to ask why I never speak, why I never sent you a voice note. You are just too perfect and there's no way you'd be with me if you knew. The reason is very simple, I was born deaf. I'm sorry you have to find out this way. I'm just a coward for not telling you sooner. I'll understand if you don't want to be with me anymore." God damn, I was expecting something totally different and now I'm scared cause I've never interacted with a deaf person and I want to make sure she gets that I love her either way. I'm still in disbelief that she thought it'd be a deal breaker for me. I would do anything to try and make it work, but I hope she feels the same. My girlfriend's best friend takes every possible chance to bully me in front of my girlfriend. Today he pulled me aside and said I am not good enough for my girlfriend, and the thought of us together disgusts him. Me and my girlfriend have been dating since before the lockdown started. We started dating a few weeks before the lockdown stuff happened, so over 3 years now. We have been super happy together and got a place together at the start of the year. She has a friend called John, they have been best friends since they were kids. He is very openly gay and is married to his husband who stinks of willy cheese. I met John once before the lockdown. He and his husband joined us on our second date. It was only recently that he was actually around and tried to do stuff with us and his husband. Honestly, I never liked John. He has always been someone who demands everyone pays attention to him. If you have an interesting story, he will constantly try to interrupt you and try to tell his own thing that is always much cooler. If he cannot one-up you, he will immediately try to change the topic, or someone calls him out on his bullshit. He has always been somewhat hostile to me to the point where I never really liked it. The last few months he has pretty much just straight up started bullying me. Criticizing everything from my clothes to my appearance, to even things I like. This was particularly upsetting as every time he did this, I was wearing my limited edition SpongeBob Crocs with the limited edition Gary the Snail charm. Last week it got super bad, when both me and my girlfriend mentioned we are going on vacation to Japan for a month, something we both wanted to do. John was apparently really hurt by it. Apparently he and my girlfriend talked about that for years but never did it due to lockdown. I tried to be nice and suggested he and his partner come with us, and he told me he would never want to go anywhere and be seen with a loser like me. This was shocking as his favorite hobby was collecting Tarzan dolls. Tonight was one of our mutual friends' birthdays and John showed up after being invited by my girlfriend. At one point in the night, He pulled me aside when I went to the bathroom and spent 5 minutes throwing an insane amount of shade at me. Everything from telling me I am disgusting to I am garbage. Then he outright told me to break up with my girlfriend or he would do it for me because our relationship disgusts him. I have told my girlfriend multiple times like, hey, can you tell John to cool it? I don't like this and I don't want to be around him. John immediately denies everything I say he said. He also only does it when my girlfriend is not present. Tonight I told her word for word what happened and she just said she doesn't believe me at all. She has known him for a quarter of a century and she has never seen anything like that. So I asked if she thought I was lying, and she said I was just embellishing what he was saying and she can tell he is unhappy about our relationship but that doesn't change anything for her. She loves me and that is that. Honestly I feel hurt, I feel she is always taking his side always and it just makes me feel like shit. I don't really know if I can continue this relationship, I feel like such a victim.
Serious, what was the darkest point in your life, and how did you deal with it? In 2012, I was at the peak of my life at the time. I was living with my two best friends, and one of them aptly named us the tripod, because you couldn't stand without one leg. I had just started seeing a beautiful woman. I had enough money to travel. I was in the best shape of my life. Then, one night I went outside to find my roommate after he got home from work. His car had been in the driveway for 20 minutes, but he hadn't come upstairs yet. I remember pushing on the gate to the driveway and there being a huge weight against it. I pushed as hard as I could and opened it up to see his body on the ground. He was wearing his all-white restaurant uniform which was blood red from the waist up. I grabbed his wrist to check his pulse, and there was nothing. At this point, my friend that came outside with me, he came down to hang out for the night. We were all going to go out, said we need to get inside. The person who did this could still be out here. So we went inside, he called 911, I woke up my other roommate, he was napping before our night out, and we went outside. He was dead before I even had found him, murdered. Long story short, he was winning his court case with his ex for custody of his son. He wanted joint custody, to split his son's time 50-50ths. She was completely uncooperative, so he said F it and went for full custody. She had accused him in court of molesting and beating their son. All of which he never did, obviously. She convinced her boyfriend of all of this, so he waited in the dark for my friend to get out of his car, and stabbed him to death. 31 times. It was the darkest time of my life. What didn't help was that this beautiful woman who I had started seeing a few months before my best friend's murder, started to use his death to manipulate me to stay with her. Serious, what was the darkest point in your life, and how did you deal with it? Looking back on it, I don't know how I didn't see it. But in the moment, I couldn't get away. I never had lower self-worth than I did when I was with her. It was crushing. I felt that I was worthless, that I could never do better than her, or that I deserved anything good in my life. Any decision I made was wrong, and she treated me like garbage, as if I ruined her life for small things like going out with friends. Eventually, we broke up. Then, around the 1-year anniversary of my best friend's murder, she weaseled her way back into my bed and back into my life, under the guise of grief over the loss of our friend. We started sleeping together again, there was a few week-long honeymoon period, and she was back to her old tricks. I finally realized that she was toxic, and slowly started to distance myself from her. During this whole ordeal, I was seeing a therapist bi-weekly. She was actually my best friend's therapist, which helped me find some solace in the wake of his murder. Now, after I distanced myself from my ex, and as I was gearing up for the murder trial to defend my best friend's honor and character, the wonderful human waltzed into my life out of nowhere. She just moved back to the US after living abroad for 4 years, and we hit it off immediately. She became my best friend and my confidant. Things were just easy. The murder trial came and went. The man was found guilty on all charges, sentences to life in prison for first-degree murder, and another 18 years for tampering with evidence. He will never see the light of day as a free man again. And I hope he lives a long, healthy life in which he thinks every day about what he did. This ray of sunshine that waltzed into my life at my darkest hour. She is now my wife. My best friend, part of our tripod, is still my best friend. We lean on each other, just like a bipod now. He is great friends with my wife, and we are great friends with his now wife. Him and I take a yearly trip and get out of Dodge on the anniversary of our best friend's death. It'll be 10 years this November. There's not a day that goes by where I don't miss that man. He was the light in a very dark time in my life. He pulled me out of a deep being sad and taught me how to be myself and be a better person. I miss him every day. I'd like to think he would be proud of how far I've come. But it sure would be nice if he was still here. He was the best person I had ever met. What is the worst thing someone has said to you during sex? Not me, but an old friend of mine. Really quiet, soft-spoken, polite guy. A total gentleman and a graduate student in the liberal arts. Also, pretty inexperienced, tentative, and vanilla sexually. He's dating this really cool girl for maybe 2 months. She is much kinkier in bed. She floats the idea of dirty talk, and apparently likes to be objectified, from time to time. He's hesitant, but wants to please her and doesn't dismiss the idea outright. Changes the subject and figures that they'll revisit the idea another time. Anyway, they have sex a few days later for the first time since the conversation. Really going at it dogja style, and she tells him to talk dirty to her. He says that he can't think of anything to say, so he says nothing, and she then repeats the request, but the second time she is not effing requesting, but demanding it. He comes up with, "Yeah, you like that, you effing retard." He's never struck me as one for embellishment, so I believe him. He said that was it for sex that night, although they are still together 2 years on now. Guys, what's the most obvious hint you got from a girl that turned out not to be a hint? Received a text message at 1:30 a.m. from a girl that I expressed interest in to come over and help her rearrange her bedroom. Turned out she couldn't sleep and just legitimately wanted help rearranging her bedroom. In high school I had a best friend I was secretly into. She invited me over to her parents' house after school every Friday. Her parents were never home, and she literally would strip naked as soon as the door closed, and invite me to join in as well. I complied, then nothing. We sit on the couch and watch TV eating popcorn, both of us buck-ass naked. After 3 weeks of blue bowling visits I tried to kiss her. Total recoil, and then she tells me she's only into girls. Later that summer she invited me to a family BBQ. Everybody there was naked including her parents. Apparently everyone in that family just liked getting naked. A drunk girl one night once approached me in a KFC and said she loved my hair. I said thank you. She then proceeded to chat and called me really good looking. I responded, as a joke playing it cool, "Oh you flirt." She responded, "I'm not flirting," and stormed off. I collected my chicken and left needlessly deflated, laughing hysterically at every joke I told. Turns out she was just a lesbian who apparently genuinely thought I was effing hilarious. When I was a teenager I had mostly female friends, one of them I was quite interested in, and one night during a party at my dad's house, she was trying to make herself a drink and splashed water over herself. Shortly after, she was explaining to me just how much water had splashed on her. During this explanation she took my hand and put it under her shirt to feel her wet bra, and held my hand there for a short while. After the party, when everyone was going to bed, she decided to sleep in my room. I offered her my bed and said I would sleep on the floor. She asked to borrow a t-shirt of mine to sleep in, removed her bra, placing it on the floor near my pillow, and got into bed. At this point she said she was cold, the house was warm. I offered to get up and turn on the heating, she said not to, and I was reluctant to make the obvious offer of sharing the bed at this point, because I didn't want to risk a friendship. In the next few weeks it kept happening. She made a point of sharing sleeping couches with me at future parties, and regularly fell asleep or lay on me in social situations, asked me into her bedroom late at night after taking drives together through the countryside, and even on time Skyping me in her dressing gown, robe, after a shower, and what I was sure at the time was surreptitiously while prone on the bed. So shortly after all this I told her I was interested in her as more than a friend. I mean, even mutual friends who had been her friend longer than mine thought she was hinting, and I was promptly shot down and then attacked by her for ruining our friendship with feelings. Apparently all that hinting behavior was not intentional, and it's just a personality quirk of hers to be overly flirty. Blues balls of my life. Multilinguals, what's if they didn't realize I could understand their language story? I live in England, but I come from Poland, and am fluent in Polish alongside English. Couple of days ago I was ordering at a Subway, when 2 Polish employees started talking. It went something along the lines of "this fattest wants chicken and bacon," and they laughed. On a side note, I feel like that's not that uncommon of an order, right? When it got to putting vegetables on the sub, I gave my order fully in Polish with a big smile on my face. The order cost me £4.80, but the looks on their faces were priceless. I was solo traveling in Morocco. I'm 22, female, and speak Arabic enough to understand conversations, basic words and phrases, etc. I was trying on clothes at a small shop, and there were 2 women helping me choose what to try on. They started talking about me in Arabic, saying how I would be a great wife for one of the ladies' sons. They were going on, and as I was leaving I responded in Arabic, "No thank you, but I appreciate your help," and they were stunned. Was a high school student in Toronto, but I speak Slovak, which is similar to Czech and Polish. I was going to school on the subway in the morning, and 2 good-looking women started to talk in Polish right next to me. I usually like to strike up conversations with fellow Central Eastern Europeans. Unfortunately they started talking about how one of them has had a burning pee problem. With nowhere to move on the packed subway and no headphones, it was an awkward thing for a 15-year-old to hear from 2 ladies. It got a little worse later when they started to talk about women problems. Now I have no issues with that convo nowadays of course, but 15-year-old virgin me was a bit mortified. A long 45 minutes. Edit word. I'm a black American. My dad was military and stationed in Korea from his late teens to mid-20s. He picked up on the language, and as a child he taught me. It was like our secret language to talk around my mom with. She hated it. Anyway. I went to college with a large Asian population. While me and some friends were in a study room, a group of students came, and I asked us to leave, so they could use the room, in English. There was no time limit, no sign up, no nothing where they had that right. So I explained that we were here first, why do they want this particular room? Then they start speaking Korean and say something along the lines of ugh, of course the black blip is being difficult, they've been here for a while, they need to leave, maybe we can lie, and say the professor reserved it. I respond, in Korean, call be a blip in English, so I can punch you, and everyone in this room knows why their faces turned bright red. They couldn't say anything, they just looked at me in shock, and then left the room. Am I the whole for telling my wife that if her sister and Bill need a place to stay, they can live in my camper? My wife and I have been married for 4 years and live on a hobby farm I purchased before we started dating. We have just under 15 acres of land, grow our own food and have some chickens, goats, and pigs. I've also spent a lot of time and money updating and renovating the house, quite a bit of which my wife has helped with over the years. One of the upgrades we did was to redo the guest bedroom and bathroom. It's quite nice. My Sil and her husband recently fell on hard times. From what I've heard, it was about 50% bad luck and 50% bad decisions on the husband's part. As a result, they and their 3 kids are currently living in a motel. My wife brought up the idea of having them come stay with us until they get on their feet, but I haven't been too enthusiastic about the idea. Her idea is to have Sil and husband take the guest room, and the kids can sleep on couches, cots in the living room. We don't have a 3rd bedroom for the kids. Now, I have always been child-free by choice. Just never wanted them. Don't hate them, but also don't necessarily want to live with 3 of them either, especially if it's an open-ended living situation. My counter was to allow them to live in my old pop-up camper I have on the property. It's about 10 years old, but it's in great shape as I store it inside. It has enough sleeping space for all of them, a shower and toilet, mini fridge, can heat. In my opinion, it's a pretty sweet camper. Also, and this is a little selfish of me, but I feel it would give them their own space, while giving them a place to stay. But it would also maybe be just uncomfortable enough for them to not want to permanently stay, and to give them motivation to find a better option. I also told her that if they stay with us, I would expect them to help out with some chores, even the older kids who are 12 and 14. My wife hates that idea, and can't believe I would force her family to stay outside in the elements, and put them to work when we spend all the time and money to redo the spare bedroom. I told her that unless Sil can give me a concrete move-out date, I don't want them and their kids living in our house indefinitely. She told me that they don't know the first thing about camping or farm work, and they need to focus on getting their lives straight, and not worrying about anything else. I told her that these are the conditions under which I am comfortable with them staying with us, and I am not budging. She told me I am being a jerk and unreasonable, and that she never expected this kind of behavior from me. The way I feel is that we are doing them a favor, and if we let them stay in the house, the temptation for them to get too comfortable is a lot greater than if they stay in the camper. I understand this could be seen as even a downgrade from living in a motel, but beggars can't be choosers. Doctors, nurses, what was the most, how the FCK are you not dead patient you dealt with? We were the closest hospital, so they brought a civilian in, former AF medic. His safety gear failed and this guy fell 128 from a communications tower. It had rained the night before, and he fell into a marshy puddle of high grass, flat on his back, concussion and whiplash. No broken bones, but the bruises that covered his body from head to heel were something to behold. He spent a week in the hospital, before he could move comfortably. A friend of mine was feeling crappy for days. He'd go to work, feel exhausted, come home, sleep 13 hours, repeat. Finally he got to feeling so bad he decided to go to the ER. He drove himself, around 3 a.m. He got out of the car, and the security guard said oh my god, and ran to get him a wheelchair. Her admission said oh my god, and got the ER doc. ER doc noted my friend was quite yellow. They ordered blood work. When it came back the ER doc didn't believe it, and had it done again. When the second round came back the doc asked my friend for next of kin information. My friend said you can't call my mom, it's 4 a.m. and the doc said your kidneys have completely failed. We are going to send you upstairs, and give you a pint of blood, and an hour of dialysis and we need to know who to call, if you still don't make it. You should have been dead a month ago. He got a kidney from his sister, and is still doing well today. Apparently the kidney was as close a match as one can get, and he should live an essentially normal lifespan. As a lab tech, I had one I dubbed everything guy. He was complaining of a sore stomach, after coming home from overseas, so got the usual what were you doing questions. He was in West Africa. Didn't bother to get anti-malarials. No vaccines. Admitted to eating bushmeat. Also said he thought it was undercooked. Drank water from a local source. Turns out this was directly from a river. Without filtering it. River was apparently badly polluted. Hired prostitutes while there. Didn't use protection. He basically saw everything you shouldn't do on holiday, and used it as a checklist. I had a patient that was already blind from diabetes, lost some toes, part of a foot. I checked the blood sugar, and it's 45. This is Canada, so your normal range is 4 to 7. Check it again, 45. This patient had no symptoms of hyperglycemia. He just took his insulin pen, cranked it, and self-injected, home care. Had to wait around a bit to see what would happen, but eventually we left. He ended up being totally fine. Most home glucometers don't go past 30. I was with my trainer nurse who was dumbfounded. We had a guy who'd lovingly crafted his own gladius sword and thrown himself on it, piercing the sternum and his heart, but he was alive and conscious, and every time his heart beat the handle of the sword vibrated. What was your loss of innocence moment as a child? When I was very young, most of my problems were solved if one of my parents picked me up if I was scared, anxious, distressed, etc. I clearly remember one day being distressed for whatever reason, and realizing that my problem was still going to exist, even if I got one of my parents to hold me. It hit me like a truck. I wasn't technically a child, but I really transitioned from child to adult when I held my childhood dog as she was being put down. I felt her heartbeat slow, then stop. When she died, so did my childhood. I miss that dog. Dad had depression, lost his job, and we lost our house, and had to live in a motel at like age 11, spent about a year there until he got better. I knew it wasn't normal, and from then on I knew life wasn't as great as it seemed on TV. When I was a kid, and watched a stupid motorcyclist pull out in front of a semi-truck traveling at 50 miles per hour, they had to hose him off the road. I had to bicycle over bits of bone and brain matter for a week, to be able to get to town. My mom gave me the sex talk then when I asked my dad he gave it to me in too much details. I was never the same. I found a stash of toys in the basement. Figured they were Christmas presents, and never mentioned them. Christmas morning, the presents were from Santa. I was heartbroken. What's the craziest thing an ex-friend lover has done to you? Found out my long-distance boyfriend of 3 years got married, and had a baby, while we were together. He was in my town every weekend, it was nuts. Got mail delivered to my house, when she found out I was going to break up with her. Then wouldn't leave when I did break up with her. I called the police and, since she received mail at my house they said it was officially her residence as well. I had to call my landlord, and have him evict me to get her to leave. Once she left he rescinded the eviction notice and I moved back in. My ex donated a kidney to me. It still wows me, how she decided without even a moment of hesitation. Great person for sure. She met me for a date, went to go meet her parents. I had a beer with her dad while she went upstairs and left her brother-in-law. Then she came downstairs and left with me to resume our date. I found out after the fact, got tested and dumped her ass. Called me at 3 in the morning to yell at me, and call me a whore for liking a YouTube video by Dashi a month before. Tried to tell me she was pregnant, when I broke up with her for being a compulsive liar, which just confirmed that she was indeed a compulsive liar. What is the most infuriating case of double standards you've come across? 35 years ago and it still pisses me off. I got detention in high school, no biggie, I did the crime. However, I was scheduled to work so I asked for detention to be delayed for 1 day. Request denied. I pointed out that football players routinely had theirs rescheduled to accommodate games in practice. Only answer I got was that's different. In work, if I am 5 minutes late they will certainly let me know about it. But if I stayed behind 15 minutes later than my finish, not even a mention. One of the regional managers goes to state prison for over a year for DWI. If you know anything about Texas DWI laws, that means he got caught multiple times. Comes out of a prison, immediately transferred to corporate, and made a director brand new employee is rear-ended in stop-go traffic on the highway. No injuries, but forced to take a DRG test. Fails for weed, immediately fired. My high school English teacher would hear something even remotely phone-like, and explode, whose phone is that? If no one answered right away A would pace the desks, and if anyone acted suspicious she would have them empty their pockets, bag, etc. on the desk. If there was a phone, she confiscated it. If there were any unread notifications, she would read them aloud. But, every now and again, she would do her whole explosion, then glance down and giggle and say oh, it's my phone, and then text away. Also, she was a terrible English teacher. For purposes of this story, I have 2 little brothers. They do not share mothers. We were eating breakfast with the mother of one of them. The other one is a picky eater. He has issues with texture, but he never complains, just powers through as best he can. She got up to get coffee, and they traded plates. Her bio son had almost cleaned his, and her stepson had eaten about half, before the trade. Then they both got up and took their plates to her like they'd finished, and she accepted them both as done. You see, when her bio son says he's full, she believes him. When her stepson says he's full, she doesn't. So they made it look like the step had eaten more because they knew the bio's plate would be accepted in any condition. I never told them that I know they did this, and probably have for a while, but I love that they figured a way around her double standards. Ex-husband ghosts ex-wife, racks up a huge bill. He clearly didn't think things through. My compliance was malicious for the ex-husband. I'm working in the billing queue in a call center for one of big 3 telcos, and a client calls in regarding a billing concern. This lady calls in, is puzzled by why she got charged a one-time fee $49 for wireless access POINT. It's Gen 1 equipment for wireless set-top boxes for optic TV. She's even more puzzled. Why would she have that charge when she doesn't have TV services from us? And I inform she does, it started more or less a month ago. She's disputing that because optic TV isn't available in her area. Now I'm confused. She lives in a small town and there's no optic TV there. I do a little digging and find out that someone, no ex-husband, was still her on account and got 3-year contract to get a free TV for optic TV and internet. She begins to cry on the phone and tells me her now ex-husband had an affair with a younger woman, divorced her, milked her for as much as he could, and apparently still is milking her for more. He totally ghosted her. Moved to Alberta, changed his email, phone number, blocked her all social media, etc. In my mind I'm like, what a meathead. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry if you cancel the services you're on, to pay for cancellation fees and so on. I can tell her though, I can remove his access to your account, and you can also add on a password, downgrade the internet and TV to the bare essentials, and I can attempt to redirect the TV gift from his address to hers, but there's no guarantee as it's been processed already. I can hear the light going off in her head. Wait, what? You have where he's living at now? Why, yes. He's got TV and internet services, so there's a service address. She goes really quiet, says her lawyer and herself have been trying to track him down, but his family and friends are being tight-lipped about it. She asks if I'm allowed to give that info to her. I smile and reply, this is your account. You have unrestricted access for service address, phone numbers, emails that your now ex-husband provided to us to get hooked up. She asks that I can give her his new address, his new cell number and the second number left on the account, presumably the new woman, and contact info over the phone right now. I asked if she had a pen and paper handy. She was so ecstatic. And after giving her all the details from her account regarding the second service address, downgrade everything, and he was a hockey fan, and there was a game playing right now with his team, so I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when the game cuts out, and he calls in to ask WTF, and discovers has been removed, and there's an account pin, and he's been discovered by his ex-wife and lawyer. One was an effort, I'll do it myself moment for you. 8 years old. Was begging my parents to teach me to ride a bike for well over a year. Maybe even 2. I felt like the last of my friends to learn and it was embarrassing. I finally went into my dad's toolbox that probably weighed as much as I did, and tried about a dozen effing tools, until I managed to figure out how to take off my little pink training wheels. I spent the next couple weeks non-stop teaching myself how to ride a bike with zero help. Absolutely effed myself up numerous times. No one noticed or cared except my friends who were stoked when I finally rolled up on 2 wheels. I am 30 now and I weirdly find this to be a pivotal moment of my life. It seems insignificant, but to feel the power of self-sufficiency at 8 was pretty dope, and really built my confidence. I bought a house recently, and the previous owners didn't leave the mailbox key. I had a million other things to do, so I figured I'd call a locksmith and let them deal with it. After getting jerked around by 3 different guys who refused to even give me a ballpark on cost, I said F it and drilled into the lock myself and replaced it. Got the job done for $30, new lock plus a wrench I had to buy, instead of probably $200. The very first day home after my second open heart surgery. I was 6 years old, sitting on the kitchen floor playing with my Hot Wheels, and I realized I had to use the bathroom. After being in the hospital for weeks, I was taught I had to be very careful. I was dosed with morphine, and couldn't feel that my sternum, which had been sawed in half, was still healing. I called for my mom, to come pick me up, and help me to the bathroom. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Well, I'm obviously not peeing my pants. I'm a big girl, damn it. So I very carefully pushed myself to my feet, and walked unaided for the first time since my surgery. Freaked my mom out, and she was super apologetic that she couldn't hear me calling. Senior year of college. I was apparently the only one capable of actually doing anything hardware related for our senior design project. Told one of the group to do a basic ass thing, and he called me saying the whole system was broken. After that, I said F it, took everything home, and did all of the build work, while the other mainly did the write-ups. Part-timer mopped the freezer. With water. What the most private thing you're willing to admit? This is gonna sound really weird, but I've become homeless 3 separate times, and each time it's like my mind just switches into survival mode, and it feels awesome. Don't get me wrong, being homeless for a prolonged period of time is not very fun at all, but there's something so exhilarating about the first week or 2, after hitting the streets, that just feels like you finally have total control and freedom over your life. Maybe I'm just a nut job. I have a therapist in my head I regularly talk to. I don't own a gun, not because I'm against it, but because I don't trust myself to not shoot myself. I love to go shooting with friends and I am a rather good long-distance shot. They'll ask why I don't bite the bullet, and buy a gun of my own, I pay for ammo, and I just say costs. But the truth is, well, I'm not suicidal, I just don't trust myself at 3 a.m., when I wake up crying. Sometimes I go into the woods to scream. Not like to release stress, just to scream like a wild man. Where to start? The fact that my husband only stayed with me because I had cancer, and he doesn't want to look like the bad guy for leaving, well I for my life. Or the fact that I hope the cancer is back, so he doesn't leave. I envy people with functional families. I'm beginning to hate all of the things that used to define me. I'm just getting colder and colder, and I don't feel bad for it. I'm just nostalgic for my old self. I almost SHT myself on my first date while walking home with them because the food didn't agree with me. I barely made it to the toilet. What was your this person is on another level of stupid moments. You'd burn down his convenience store for an insurance claim and stop the milk and bread deliveries the day before. Demolished my right foot and a bunch of other SHT in a motorcycle crash and had to have the top of my foot removed. Guy I worked with asked me when it would grow back. I explained that the skin and stuff was going to have to be grafted, but the tendons and bones that had been removed were gone forever. He looked me dead in the eye and asked, why don't they just cut the whole effing thing off and let it grow back? Going through security and the person says I need to show a different form of it. I ask why because I gave them my driver's license. They say I need a document like a green card or something. I'm a citizen. Then I realized I explained how District of Columbia is long for DC. Like Washington DC. As in the capital of our country. I got a bad grade in geography in high school. My teacher kept trying to push me and suggested I talk to my parents about it. I told my mom I was failing geography, and she said, how effing stupid can you really be, Justin? How do you fail geography? It's just shapes. I'll never forget that one. Coworker bought a low-flow shower head. He filled the bathtub using the new low-flow shower head because it would use less water. What's the worst weirdest experience you've had in a job interview? Meet this guy at a job fair. He loves my work, gives me his card and tells me to call him the next day. I call him and we set up an interview. I go to his office, he looks at my portfolio, tells me it's great, and that I'm a great fit for his company. He proceeds to give me a tour of his entire office, introduces me to a bunch of people, and tells me about the great lunch spots in the area. At the end of the interview, we sit back down and he says this, love your work and you seem great, but we're actually not hiring right now, but I'll keep you in mind. DF. Had a job interview for a warehouse position at an office furniture retailer. During house hours rep and the owner interviewed me. Questions were absolutely basic, and they were super aggressive about finding out if I could start immediately. Like, they weren't gonna check my references or even think about it. I had a pulse, so I was qualified. This screamed high turnover to me. The owner was a younger dude, he was the son of the former owner. He shows me around the building despite me not really wanting to work there because I was getting bad vibes. Takes me to the warehouse and introduces me to the warehouse manager and the other employees there. Warehouse manager seems like a humorless dick, and the other guys looked indifferent and unhappy. Anyhow, as the owner is explaining the role to me, he does a swinging gesture with his hand and knocks over a glass bottle of iced tea the warehouse manager was drinking. It smashes on the floor, and the owner continues to talk like it didn't even happen. Warehouse manager just stares at his busted beverage and says, really, man, the friggin' owner keeps on talking and walks me off somewhere else. So friggin' awkward. The owner after the tour then asks me, so can you come in at 8 tomorrow? Me completely drained from the verbal diarrhea that was the entire interview and tour. I'll have to think about it. I bail on the place, but I get phone call the next morning from the owner. Hey, you didn't show up for your shift, what happened? Me, I never accepted the job, so that's what happened. Owner, you signed your employment contract. I didn't sign anything. What are you talking about? Owner, this looks really bad, Ray. Not a good start for you. I don't even work there, you psycho. I hang up. What is the scariest thing you witnessed with your own eyes? When I was around 6, we were going to my grandparents' house. On the interstate, a woman seemed to fall out of a car in front of us. My dad had to swerve to avoid hitting her. That's all I saw with my own eyes. It turned out the woman's husband was trying to murder her and make it look like a suicide. The intention was for my dad to have run her over, but he has time to swerve. The husband had an accomplice behind us, but he couldn't hit her because of how my dad swerved. Some other good Samaritans stopped and gave the woman a ride to the hospital. The guy who gave her a ride and my dad were both called as witnesses at the trial. The husband and the accomplice were both convicted for conspiracy for attempted murder. When I was a kid, I witnessed my drunk stepfather wielding a loaded shotgun with the safety off. It was pointed inches from the face of my dog, and he threatened to blow her head off right then and there. Fortunately, he didn't shoot her in front of me. Bad news is that she ran away, leaving her collar and tags behind a few days later. My mom tried to kill herself in front of me. Watching my siblings hide away from what was going on was the only reason I stayed remotely sane. I'm glad they didn't see any of it. A kid in preschool getting his skull bashed in by another 4-year-old with one of those big old wooden blocks. I've never seen so much blood. After that the wooden blocks got replaced by cardboard ones. 35 years later I still see clearly. 911 operators of Reddit, what call will you simply never forget? Student paramedic here. Had a call being general broadcasted over radio when I was chilling in base with my mentor. We were on a two-man car ambulance. Operator who was broadcasting said something along the lines of, female, reportedly unconscious, police on scene, major trauma, pause CPR in progress, confirmed arrest by police on scene. My mentor looks at me. We're off in 30 minutes at the end of a night shift, but we go anyway. We're around the corner. Make it there in no time at all. There's police everywhere. At least 7 squad cars. I'm nervous as hell and so is my mentor. As we approach the house, a man emerges, handcuffed by police. He looks content enough and smiles at us as we walk by. Police shout for us to hurry. We run over with equipment to front door, and are met with one of the worst scenes I've ever seen, and will always be there in my mind. There's a woman lying on the ground, with the left side of her head caved in, blood absolutely all over the place and brain matter scattered around the floor too. Police are doing CPR. We stop them when we see the patient has signs of pulling and rigorous. I'm literally sweating and on the verge of tears. This is not how I wanted my shift to end. Then, we hear from behind us more police in the house and the sounds of children. 2 kids are escorted out of a bedroom behind us with their eyes covered, and one of them asks what's going on, where's mommy? My heart melted. I've never been exactly traumatized by a job, but those kids being shielded from what just happened to their mother will stick with me forever. I bring equipment back to the ambulance as my mentor starts to do paperwork, and we wait for someone to move the body. Social services arrive and take the kids, blissfully unaware of what's just happened. Was off 3 hours late after all the paperwork and interviewing from police. Good job, but man has it left its mark on me. What phrase is a dead giveaway that the person talking is a piece of shit? Do you know who I am? Also C. Do you know who my dad is? All my exes are crazy is priming you to not talk to the exes, so you don't find out the person is a jerk. What's the common denominator here? This is just how I am, was raised, was taught. You've ruined my day when somebody else is upset for good reason. Looks for things I say to see if I'm a piece of shit. My trauma is worse than yours. People with street smarts, what is your most street tip? Never count your cash in public even if in singles. If an attractive woman asks for directions, look for her partner behind you, or going into your car to take what they can grab. Typical vacation area scam. Walk on the road, if you're in a real shady neighborhood, and it's late at night. Not in traffic, but away from alleyway entrances. Security guards, doormen, food cart operators, and blue-collar workers in general are well versed about the location of the nearest restrooms. If you're in the hood and you see kids playing outside, you're probably safe. If there are a lot of people outside but no kids, be super cautious and walk with a purpose. If it's empty or only teenagers, young adults, get out ASAP.